on the path of initiation, and includes those graded lives, from the more advanced disciple up to the planetary Logos himself. But forget not that when we make these distinctions, it is nevertheless one soul that is functioning, acting through vehicles of varying capacities, of differentiated refinements, and of greater and lesser limitations, in just the same sense as a man is one identity, working sometimes through a physical body and sometimes through a feeling body, or a mental body, and sometimes knowing himself to be the self, a rare and unusual occurrence for the majority. Every form in manifestation does two things. 1. Appropriates, or is pervaded by, as much of the world soul as its capacity will permit. The atom of substance, the molecule or the cell all have soul, but not in the same degree as has an animal. And an animal has soul, but not in the same degree as has a master, and so on up or down the scale. 2. Through the interaction between the indwelling soul and the form, two things occur. A. Sentiency and quality are expressed according to the type of body, and its point of evolution. B. The pervading soul drives the body nature into activity, and forces it forward along the path of development, and thus provides for the soul a field of experience and for the body the opportunity to react to the higher soul impulse. Thus the field of expression is benefited, and the soul masters the technique of contact which is its objective in any particular form. The soul therefore, viewed from one angle, is an aspect of the body, for there is a soul in every atom comprising all bodies in all kingdoms in nature. The subtle coherent soul which is the result of the bringing together of spirit and matter exists as an entity apart from the body nature, and constitutes, when separated from the body, the etheric body, the double, as it is sometimes called, or the counterpart of the physical body. This is the sum total of the soul of the atoms constituting the physical body. It is the true form. It is the principle of coherence in every form. The soul, in relation to the human being, is the mind principle in two capacities, or the mind expressing itself in two ways. These two ways are registered and become part of the organized equipment of the human body when it is adequately refined and sufficiently developed. 1. The lower concrete mind, the mental body, the chitta, or mind stuff. 2. The higher spiritual or abstract mind. These two aspects of the soul, its two basic qualities, bring into being the human kingdom and enable man to contact both the lower kingdoms in nature and the higher spiritual realities. The first, the quality of mind in its lower manifestation, is owned potentially by every atom in every form in every kingdom in nature. It is a part of the body nature, inherent and potential, and is the basis of brotherhood, of absolute unity, of universal synthesis and divine coherence in manifestation. The other, the higher aspect, is the principle of self-awareness, and when combined with the lower aspect produces the self-consciousness of the human being. When the lower aspect has informed and pervaded the forms in the subhuman kingdoms, and when it has worked upon those forms, and their latent sentiency so as to produce adequate refinement and sentiency, the vibration becomes so potent that the higher is attracted and there is a fusion or at one ing. This is like a higher recapitulation of the initial union of spirit and matter which brought the world into being. A human soul is thus brought into existence, and begins its long career. It is now a differentiated entity. Soul also is a word used to express the sum total of the psychic nature, the vital body, the emotional nature and the mind stuff. But it is also more than that, once the human stage is reached. It constitutes the spiritual entity, a conscious psychical being, a son of God, possessing life, quality and appearance, a unique manifestation in time and space of the three expressions of the soul as we have just outlined them. 1. The soul of all the atoms, composing the tangible appearance. 2. The personal soul or the subtle coherent sum total which we call the personality, composed of the subtle bodies, etheric, or vital, astral or emotional, and the lower mental apparatus. These three vehicles humanity shares with the animal kingdom as regards its possession of vitality, sentiency, and potential mind. With the vegetable kingdom as regards vitality and sentiency. And with the mineral kingdom as regards vitality and potential sentiency. 3. The soul is also the spiritual being, or the union of life and quality. When there is the union of the three souls, so called, we have a human being. Thus in man you have the blending or fusion of life, quality and appearance, or spirit, soul and body, through the medium of a tangible form. In the process of differentiation these various aspects have attracted attention, and the underlying synthesis has been overlooked or disregarded. Yet all forms are differentiations of the soul, but that soul is one soul, when viewed and considered spiritually. When studied from the form side, not but differentiation and separation can be seen. When studied from the consciousness or sentiency aspect, unity emerges. When the human stage is reached and self-awareness is blended with the sentiency of forms, and with the tiny consciousness of the atom, some idea of a possible subjective unity begins dimly to dawn on the thinker's mind. When the stage of discipleship is reached, a man begins to see himself as a sentient part of a sentient whole, and slowly reacts to the purpose and intent of that whole. He grasps that purpose little by little as he swings consciously into the rhythm of the sum total of which he is a part. When more advanced stages and more rarefied and refined forms are possible, the part is lost in the whole. The rhythm of the whole subjects the individual to a uniform participation in the synthetic purpose, but the realization of individual self-awareness persists and enriches the individual contribution, which is now intelligently and willingly offered, so that the form not only constitutes an aspect of the sum total, which has always and inevitably been the case, even when unrealized, but the conscious thinking entity knows the fact of the unity of consciousness, and of the synthesis of life. Thus we have three things to bear in mind as we read and study. 1. The synthesis of life spirit. 2. The unity of consciousness soul. 3. The integration of forms body. These three always have been at one, but the human consciousness has not known it. It is the realization of these three factors, and their integration into the technique of living which is, for man, the objective of his entire evolutionary experience. Let us, talking necessarily in symbols, consider the universal soul, or the consciousness of the Logos who brought our universe into being. Let us regard the deity as pervading the form of his solar system with life, and as being conscious of his work, of his project and his goal. This solar system is an appearance, but God remains transcendent. Within all forms God is immanent, yet persists aloof and withdrawn. Just as a thinking, intelligent human being functions through his body but dwells primarily in his mental consciousness, or in his emotional processes, so God dwells withdrawn in his mind nature. The world that he has created and pervaded with his life, goes forward towards the goal for which he has created it. Within, however, the radius of his appearing form, greater activities are going forward. Varying states of consciousness and stages of awareness are to be seen. Developing degrees of sentiency emerge, and even in the symbolism of the human form we have such differing states of sentiency as are registered by the hair, by the internal organisms in the body, by the nervous system, by the brain, and by the entity we call the self, who registers emotion and thought. In the same way does the deity, within the solar system, express as wide a divergence of consciousness. There is a body consciousness. There is a sensory apparatus, registering reaction to the environment. There is a consciousness of moods, of quality, of mental reactions to a world of ideas. There is a higher consciousness of plan and of purpose. There is a consciousness of life. It is interesting to note in connection with the deity that the sensory response to environment provides the entire basis for astrology, and for the effect of the constellations upon the solar system, and the interplanetary forces. We might sum it all up in relation to man as follows. Man's form nature reacts in its consciousness to the form nature of deity. The outer garment of the soul, physical, vital and psychic, is part of the outer garment of God. Man's self-conscious soul is en rapport with the soul of all things. It is an integral part of the universal soul, and because of this can become aware of the conscious purpose of deity. Can intelligently cooperate with the will of God, and thus work with the plan of evolution. Man's spirit is one with the life of God and is within him, deep-seated in his soul, as his soul is seated within the body. The spirit will in some distant time put him en rapport with that aspect of God which is transcendent, and thus each son of God will eventually find his way to that center withdrawn and abstracted where God dwells beyond the confines of the solar system. These are words which are formulated in an endeavor to convey an idea of order, of plan, of universal synthesis, of the integration and incorporation of the fragment in the whole, and of the part with the all. Let us endeavor now to answer the second question, remembering as we proceed, that it is not possible for us to do more than enter symbolically into the practical purposes of deity. As I write for simple aspirants, I cannot convey the truth, until such time as their rapport with their own souls is complete, or more complete than is now the case. The effort, however, to grasp that which cannot be expressed in words produces a downpouring of the abstract mind, or of the intuition, and this, in its turn, stimulates and develops the brain cells and produces a steady stabilization of the power, to stand in, spiritual being. Then it becomes possible, to grasp the inexpressible and to live by its power. Question 2. What are the origin, goal, purpose and plan of the soul? The 7 rays are the sum total of the divine consciousness, of the universal mind. They might be regarded as 7 intelligent entities through whom the plan is working out. They embody divine purpose, express the qualities required for the materializing of that purpose, and they create the forms and are the forms through which the divine idea can be carried forward to completion. Symbolically, they may be regarded as constituting the brain of the divine heavenly man. They correspond to the ventricles of the brain, to the 7 centers within the brain, to the 7 centers of force, and to the 7 major glands which determine the quality of the physical body. They are the conscious executors of divine purpose. They are the 7 breaths, animating all forms which have been created by them to carry out the plan. It may perhaps be easier to understand the relation of the 7 rays to deity if we remember that man himself, being made in the image of God, is a 7-fold being, capable of 7 states of consciousness, expressive of the 7 principles, or basic qualities which enable him to be aware of the 7 planes upon which he is, consciously or unconsciously, functioning.